Falta Istak, you're very welcome as we gather to celebrate Suantraí, Íosa, looking at the readings for tomorrow, the 17th, the feast of St. Antony of Egypt, who we attribute as being the author or the inspired one who began the monastic life tradition in the church. Believed to have been born sometime around 251 and died around 356. So he lived a long but effective life. There are notes about him under the video on YouTube, but I just want to tell one story about him. He was out one day and he had his monks, and they were involved in recreation and they were having fun. And an individual who was out hunting arrived, and he'd heard about the story of the holiness of this community, and he was appalled that they were having fun. They shouldn't be fasting or praying or torturing themselves for God. And Antony came over and he was gifted. He said to him, "Oh my goodness, you have a bow." He said, "You try that bow and let me see how far you can fire the arrow." And he pulled it back and fired the arrow. And Antony said, "Can you try again? Could you get it to go further?" And he pulled back further again on the bow, and he fired, and the arrow went further. He said, "Do it again." But the man said, "No," he said, "if I do that, if I push the bow too hard, it will break." And Antony said, in the same way, if you push our humanity too much, it will break. In the spiritual life, we need to have discipline, and we need to have prayer and fasting and sacrifice, but we must also care for brother as St. Francis would refer to his body. We must have a compassionate view of God's creation, of humanity. Otherwise, there's something else happening in us, and at some level, we're rejecting our own humanity. Fabulous tradition, and greatly influenced Irish monasticism. Thanks be to God. I think one of the great successors of Antony, of course, is St. Benedict, and the rule of St. Benedict in all its compassion. And the first reading tomorrow is taken from the first book of Samuel, and it's the story of this young boy going out to confront Goliath. The secret of David is, and again, he's presented as a boy of fresh complexion and pleasant bearing. We've already had that description of him when Samuel went to anoint him. At the human level, he's not at all an impressive warrior, but David's secret is, he says, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the army of Israel that you dared to insult." David puts his source of power as being the Lord. David has a wonderful faith in God. May the Lord give us faith today that we can be both like Antony and have a compassion for our humanity in our pursuit of holiness, and like David, that we will do everything in the power of the Lord. And the gospel tomorrow, is it against the law on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill? The Lord heals a man with a withered hand. But the Pharisees are so caught up in their own rigors that they fail to see the wonder of God delivering this man from this affliction, and it becomes a source of conflict, and they go off and they conspire with their enemies, the Herodians, to try and destroy Christ. God save us from such spiritual blindness. May God give us the humility that Antony sought to create in his monasteries. May God give us humility to follow Christ and accept our humanity, and at the same time accept the call of Christ in our lives. With thoughts such as these, let us go to our beds and let us pray. We shall indeed awaken in the morning with the praise of God on our hearts and on our lips. Agus gemana dia le coach shiv, a her mark agus spirit nave, amen. Slán go fóill. Bye for now.